It's my fault. We don't need Aaron. No, we just need me to know what I'm doing. Now we're right. All right. Good morning. The record will no doubt reflect that the Mayor has resumed the chair. Agenda item 337. This basically just an acknowledgement for those who have completed whichever degree of study was required for or indicated for them. So well done to Brittany, to Kate and to Angus. I guess just my question, just for clarity from me here, and it probably have to be on notice. We require the finalisation of their studies for the complete payment. However, when somebody is, say, in year 2 of a 4-year bachelor's, we're providing them a bursary for that 12-month period. Should perhaps we just ask that to ensure that they completed their studies in that year to finalise the payment, because technically they would be eligible for a subsequent payment in a future round of funding. I mean, it hasn't happened, but or are we comfortable that we wait till, say, if they're in year 2? And because if you note your background report there, councillors, one of the students has still got 3 semesters to go, which is a long time to wait for a bursary that was awarded potentially 2.5 years prior. So what's your thoughts there in terms of the process at the moment? Is they have to complete their studies, so go right the way through, but if they're awarded the bursary in year 1 or 2 of a, let's say they're a vet or a medical doctor, they have to wait another 3 or 4 years to complete their studies. So he's perhaps completing, I don't know, that's the simplest way to do it, because you don't have to have some arbitrary determinator there, but what are your thoughts? Just before this is a process question, obviously I'm diverting slightly from this resolution, but...
My thoughts, Mr Mayor, it's too long to wait. If we issue a bursary for someone, I think they should be paid in the year that...
Provided they actually do the study that they indicate they're going to do.
They're still studying at the end of that year or something, and
yeah.
You know, I don't know how you can possibly get an idea on their results and how they're going, but...
Through you, Mr Mayor, she did provide a report to show that she had finished her courses for 2022, and that report also showed for the courses that she would undertake in 23.
I'd be comfortable with that, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Rogers, do you have any thoughts there?
Brilliant, Mr Mayor. Yeah, I was always on the understanding that it was a 1 year, like at the end of the year they provide their results for that year and then they were paid, not like, because this is like not really, I'm not going to mention any names, but one of the people that have now produced their results, that's an 8-year course that she's doing, and she'll receive her, she has provided her result for the end of this first year, which she's successfully completed. But then there's the other person who has still got 3 semesters. Well, you know, and there's another person that's been completed at the top that I know is a 2 or 3 year course. So it's not. I think that Michaela obviously should be just contacted and paid for. I was under the understanding that it was for, you get the final results for the end of 1 year. So yeah, I agree with Gary. 8 years is too long to wait for the final payment.
Councillor Gleeson.
To me, the bursary is to assist. In my opinion, the bursary is to assist their education. So I feel as though that they, as long as they can prove that the education is going to happen, they should be paid.
Yeah, so I think they're paid half up front, and then the other half just to make sure they do actually follow through. But I don't think they need to wait until the very end, do they? Yeah, I'm sorry. Councillor Henson.
I'm sort of inclined to think after the first 12 months they should get their final payment. It's a payment to assist with their studies, but if they've already completed them, they couldn't use that money to actually assist with their studies.
Councillor Hart.
I couldn't find where we originally had the information about the bursary, but I would hope, yeah, that it has to, because $2,000 would maybe cover one subject at the university level. No, that's what I said, maybe. Yeah, so I would hope that the parameters for the bursary were as long as you had studied and completed subjects within that 12 months, that the money would be available.
Councillor Plum.
Yes, I was on the same as councillor, the other councillors. When they first go into something like this, to start, they really need a bit of money to help with their costs, and I think that they should be paid on the year that they're doing it, and confirm it with a result, with a certificate of a result or some confirmation from where they're doing it to say that they've completed it. Yeah, in that year, and I think there's more coming out this year, so that can they apply again? They're going to apply again from this next year, so yeah, get them to apply again if they need more funds for further.
So councillors, I think we're all in agreement here. So Debbie, did you just say that you actually did receive the student who still has 3 semesters to complete? Did
Yes.
you receive hers? So we've got evidence that the study's been completed for the other 2 students who aren't mentioned there. I wonder if we amend this resolution to include all 5, and maybe because they haven't actually received a final payment, we just congratulate the recipients of the Barcaldine Region Scholarship 2022 who have achieved finalisation of the remaining 2 or qualify.
That's number 22 for you.
Who have completed their studies and
In the 22.
to students.
Finalisation of their qualifying for the remainder of their bursary payment.
And then do we also look at, for when the next time we go around with the bursary, re-look at the wording?
Clarify the interpretation of the word.
Yeah.
Who have received finalisation and qualified. Councillor Rogers, are you happy with those amendments?
Just reading it, Mr. Mayor, I still would just question, do we want to do anything about, like, Michaela is obviously in the background information, it's saying that she's not going to get her final payment for another 2.5 years. Whereas everyone, I mean, she has probably successfully passed her first year, so.
Yeah, we just heard, sorry, Councillor Rogers, we just got that advice, sorry, Debbie just indicated to us that she has that information to hand, so all 5 would qualify is what we're saying. That's why we've amended that.
Oh, okay, yeah. Yep. No, I'm happy with that new, the amendment, Mr. Mayor.
So the only thing I'd further amend, Debbie, is after recipients, can we put in brackets all 5 of their names for the record, please?
Mr. Mayor, can I ask how about the other reciprocate, Angus Stewart? Is he going all right? Is he? I guess he's not mentioned. He was mentioned, not mentioning how. Is he still continuing? With
No,
it?
he's finished. He was a school-based apprenticeship.
Oh, right.
With those 3, yes.
Yeah, what does that say?
But he's already provided us evidence of
Those 3
completion.
aren't those 2.
So school-based apprenticeship, that works.
So there's 5 in total.
Oh, right.
Okay, with the names inserted in that appropriate place, Councillor Peoples is moving. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Rogers, would you like to second that motion?
Yes.
Those in favour? 7-0. We've just got a freeze, so we'll just hold for a moment. felt that way.
That's about, orange.
Okay. Can I have a motion please to receive the annual operational plan Quarter 2 review? Councillor Plum, seconded Councillor Peoples. Those in favour? 7-0.
Councillors, we did hand out yesterday and we have emailed around this morning. Apologise for not getting to you last week. We've tried to put more information in the Quarter 2 column. What I'd like to do is with Dan here is actually look at how we present this to council with some bit of detail. So I'm not 100% happy with the formatting, but I'll take advice from council what you'd like to see. Generally in Quarter 2 is an update of how we're progressing. I think probably the best way to approach these questions from the floor.
All right. Councillor Rogers, do you have any questions off bat for the review?
Yes, Mr Mayor. A couple of questions. One is just this report it looks as though the responsibility for some of the actions have been changed, like so some of the, is that correct? Like some of the things that the CEC officer used to do have been taken out and given to the district managers. It looks to me like that's happened in some areas, and then some jobs that were for the deputy CEO have been taken out, and I think I just haven't had enough time because I only got this yesterday, that like the previous report had the deputy CEO doing jobs, but I think now that's swapped over to the CEO. Is that correct?
Yeah, we just took responsibility out because we don't have a DCO anymore. We don't have the comms as well, so we couldn't hold them to account because they're not here.
But there still is some BEC is still in here in a couple of areas.
Councillor Rogers, that's just an oversight. They'll change.
Yeah, and then the other thing I was going to ask was, or I was just going to mention, so when area 1.9 provide facilities and support for travelling shows and exhibitions, sports and recreation. I don't know if we've changed, like it might be a change of direction, but like up until now, that mainly it concentrates on getting external stakeholders into the area, like the Junior Rugby League and the Ballymena Rodeo and Camp Drafts and Get Gardening, and they're all local, like they're events that we already hold here all the time. This is more about getting external stakeholders in, like such as the Rec Park powerboat racing and the outback rowing. Yeah, I just wanted to mention that because I think there might have been a bit of confusion about what that was just from reading all that in the second order. But the other thing was one of the 3.4.
Councillor Rogers, I think, sorry, some of those, I mean, what's indicated in the box for the second quarter are regional events across the area. I guess they're more of a reflection of what actually happened in that period of time as well. You know, they are mentioned, outback rowing and powerboat races, as well as those things like the annual art show. You know, so those events that attract external support. I mean, I guess even Ballymena Rodeo, Mullaburra Camp Draft races, festivals of small halls, all of those things are mentioned as events that actually occurred. I guess the the box there is to indicate what activity has been undertaken in that space during the quarter.
Yeah. However, like, I was just making sure that the understanding hadn't been lost, that we're trying to get external stakeholders into the area, like say the bush councils. Like it's not just events for everyone. It's conferences, the bush councils, Queensland Opera, like all those things that come from externally into our area. It was more about that, but there's nothing wrong with listing the other things and just making sure that that understanding wasn't lost. Or, finding out whether we've changed our direction in that.
No, I don't think so, Councillor Rogers. I think it's just that at each quarterly review, we look at what activities have been undertaken in that specific area in the period of time that covers.
It's a progress report as such, so the next one will show that we've got Queensland Opera, that we've signed an agreement with.
Yeah, because the previous quarter, it was just, there was, mentioning the long drive for the drought, which is external, and talking about the Muddaborough Queensland fossil health emblem. But just on that event thing, is Queensland Opera still coming to Barcaldine, because we're not mentioned in the website?
We've signed the agreement, it's all gone back. Our district managers, what do you call the Queen of the Opera?
I'll just take them.
Queensland Opera, on their website, they've only got Quinton and Longreach, and Barcaldine's
That
not on
might
their
be a different part,
schedule.
because there was a travelling opera and then there's the one that we've signed up for.
Yeah, because I thought we had I thought that, sometime last year we had booked them in. That's all, I was just.
Yeah. So
And the other thing is,
Councillor Rogers, that we
Sorry,
just while we've got a district manager looking for the answer to your question, while that's happening, Rapid, I'm aware that Queensland Opera this year, their two big shows are Winton and Longreach, but they're combined with those two large shows undertaking the smaller boutique presentations and workshops. Rapid supplied funding directly to them to the value of, I reckon, $10,000 to help facilitate visits to Blackwall, Barcaldine, but Jenny's got more information for you.
We definitely have signed the agreement and it's for our town hall here.
so maybe that's why it's not on their main schedule.
Jenny?
Yeah, it's a separate one to the main.
Yes.
It's Lady Sings the Maroons regional tour.
Sorry, Councillor Rogers, we've got an answer from Jenny for you.
It's Lady Sings the Maroons regional tour, and we have signed the agreement. That has all gone back to them. So and that is on
Thanks,
the
Jen.
Camerata is coming as well.
23rd. Yes, it is. I think they're around the same time. 23rd of May, I think the date is.
It just hasn't happened yet, so it's in progress.
23rd of May.
Through the chair, it is on the website, Opera Queensland website.
It is there.
Councillor Rogers,
Thank you, Jen.
Dan's just found it on the Opera Queensland website.
Yeah, that's great. And the other thing was just in goal, theme 3 transport. We're missing one of the, actions, 3.4. So 3.4, transport infrastructure, footpaths and roads, is actually really meant to be 3.5, and 3.4 is develop roads and footpath design standards for townships to reduce whole of life costs, so we're just missing one.
No,
No,
I don't know
we
whether
merged
to
them.
remove that because I've questioned it several times.
Yep.
And had to be retold that it's.
Yeah, no, that was amended, Councillor
Yep.
Rogers. That was moved back when we adopted the operational plan at the meeting following the budget meeting. 3.5 was pushed out.
Yeah. No.
Alrighty, yeah. So that was, when was that revised, sorry, Mr Mayor?
Oh, we did it when we adopted the plan, which neither Councillor Arthur and I can remember, but we had a long discussion about that, whether it fitted in the right place. So I think we'll have to take that on notice,
Yeah, it was probably August.
August or September.
When we adopted the budget, we operated the operational plan and stuff.
It was after the
Yeah,
budget.
that's all, thank you, Mayor. Yeah.
Councillor Plum, do you have any questions?
What at the moment is there?
Councillor
No, just
Councillor Henson,
I'm right at the stage, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Gleeson.
I'm good, Mr Mayor.
One more go around, questions for the review?
I guess generally it's just an update on how we're progressing. The next one is the key one about how we're hitting targets with the budget. That comes up with the budget.
Okay. 341, can I have somebody move that we receive the financial report, please? Councillor Plum, seconded. Councillor Hanson, those in favour? 7-0. Okay, who's leading here? Summer, you or Dan?
Talk through it, so I'm at the back.
So, Morning Council, the front of you today is the council budget report, performance report to the 31st of January. So it takes in the amendments that were made in the January meeting, in addition to what was the budget adopted in June last year. So just a few points I wanted to point out on the progress of our financial performance. So our rates and levies are progressing really well for that third period. The rates levies are almost identical to budget. Fees and charges are slightly above budget at the moment. Interest is showing quite a bit below budget at the moment. The interest received, that is just an error in the coding, so we'll have that rectified next month, and it should be showing a lot closer to where the budget figure is. The recoverable works is down slightly on budget at the moment, or down a bit on budget. We have received a payment further in February, so that'll be reflected in next month's report. Grants and subsidies is also showing significantly under budget for revenue. We believe that's a phasing issue, so we are rectifying that at the moment to better represent what the year-to-date figure is for the budget there. In the expenditure space, we are slightly under budget in our employee benefits. This is due to the number of vacancies, which we've referred to already this morning, and our materials and services are over budget, with an increased focus on our recoverable works so far this year. In the maintenance space, you can see there we're well under budget in a number of areas. We probably, with the flood damage, we are, I think as we've reported in previous meetings, it'll be challenging for us to get close to those budget numbers in those spaces. The capital works is also well under budget in expenditure at this stage. And in the cash space, we are on our cash focus. It does show that we have 2 months is the number of months left on sustainability based on the loans and the cash at bank and our payer liabilities. Also, I just want to note in the Department of State Development, Infrastructure and Local Government and Planning recently released a financial management sustainability framework guideline. So that came out late last year. What that's done is sort of looked as a fit for purpose framework in the way that it measures our performance, as particularly in regards to sustainability from a financial perspective. There is a ratio in that where it looks at unrestricted cash, expense cover ratio, and it's one of the new ratios that we have to report on as part of our annual report going forward. I think we've still got another couple of years being a Tier 6 council under that revised framework. The idea of the framework is a bit more fit for purpose. So the 3 sustainability guidelines that we report on in our annual report each year are not really fit for all councils in the way they are. So they've created, I think there's 9 ratios now, and they are sort of to provide different targets for different councils. So based on that, we should be looking around 4 months on that formula. Currently at the moment, we do have 3 months, so we are under target on that at the moment. And that'll sort of, depending on what we can get in from our, with our recoverable works over the next couple of months, it's probably not going to improve a great deal until our rates are issued. And that's when we'll get a big boost to that to get us through. So we'll talk a bit more about strategy in regards to how we manage that going forward in the budget process this year. But yeah, there is We are under budget at the moment and cash is tight for us to continue to go forward.
I guess the beauty of now that we've been internally tracking this, is, aside from the department's desire to do the same thing, is year on year we're comparable. The big boost is always around that May, June as we either receive a new fags payment in advance and or the second rates for the year. So we'd be, whilst January's down, we'd be very keen to see over the next couple of months that start to stabilise and lift back northwards. The other thing is our internal sustainability matrix, for want of a better definition, has always assumed a zero revenue receipt, whereas I think the department's focus is on that you'd still receive some income, doesn't it? So we've always assumed, like I guess we've used the phrase doomsday scenario. If all money stopped walking in the door tomorrow, how long have we got out? And I guess that's a slightly harsher sustainability matrix than what the department, and probably the department's probably more pragmatic in that because it's unlikely, but we've just assumed the worst case scenario moving forward. So if we're at that 2 to 3 and under the department's model, we'd be 3 to 4. They're probably about static because there's some different assumptions. Would that be right?
Through the chair, yeah, the key difference is the both the council's formula and the state's recommendation has no further cash coming through the door. The states looks at being able to continue to fund just ongoing monthly expenditure, whereas the council's one looks to pay out the liability that we owe as well. So this is the key difference.
So is that what the loan line is? I'm sorry, just slightly different. So I'm not being critical, just trying to get my head around it. The loan line on that page under the cash at bank of 11 million, we've got a loan of 2.86. That's not our total loan balance. Is that the current loan that we haven't yet drawn down for?
Yeah, it's almost that, Mr. Mayor. It's after paying out what we've been paying in this year too, so we're down to almost near that.
Oh, so sorry, can you say that again? So in the 2.86 million, what does that represent?
I'll have to confirm this, Mr. Mayor, but I'm sure that represents your actual loan.
Balance.
Yeah, balance.
Balance of the loan that's left.
Okay, right. Because we have in the past lined out where we've secured the loan for, it's morphed a bit, but it was water and sewage and then SCADA and telemetry and a bit of both, the sewage treatment upgrade. That loan, that new $2 million facility, have we fully drawn that facility now? Is all of that money, we had to draw that down before June 30 last year?
It has been drawn this way.
Right.
But
So
I'll confirm this figure. Yeah.
but your expectation is that you're going to confirm that to be our total loan, our total debt liability? Right.
Yes.
Oh, I've confused financial terms there. There's no debt and liability, but you know what I mean.
Mr. Mayor, it matches the current liabilities borrowing
Yeah. Right.
and
Thank you for that.
non-current. So 530,000, 2.332. Whether that's a coincidence,
It should do.
You're supposed to do that.
I just want to re-clarify this question. In the line for annual leave and long-service leave, does that also include accrued sick leave?
No, Mr. Mayor.
No.
No, sick leave.
Because it's
No,
not
because,
payable.
Mr. Mayor, it's not payable. The mechanism of doing this was to, if we shut business today, what we have to pay. So that's the liability that exists.
Okay. Yep, thank you. Questions, please, councillors?
through you, Mr. Mayor, further to that, so we've got a pool of money that we will have left if all income stops. Our expenditure is based on work continuing, or do we go into a caretaker mode, or how do we, like, if we have $10 million and we know we spend wages of X, is it that simple?
I think so.
Through the chair, so the calculation looks at what our average monthly expenditure has been for this year to date, and that is what's used to work out that $6.1 million figure that's left there. So we are spending, it's over $2 million we're spending per month to keep council going at the moment between wages, material and services that we're paying out. And when that's taken into consideration, it's 2 months.
Yeah, so, which councillor is a very harsh thing, because obviously if we're going to stall this, like, we're going to stop, well,
Yeah, well,
our activities are going to stop for most
it
years.
is based on, the calculation is based on work continuing as normal even though income stops.
assumptions are made.
Okay.
The big one.
Yeah,
for us is
yeah,
to ensure
it's an
the rules
indicator,
are
but it's not perfect, but it is an indicator.
It's a guide.
Yeah.
Good.
No. It'll be interesting to see the other one from state development.
Whereas through you, Mr. Mayor, whereas the other one is only indicating what actual expense at that time has been through the year, and then works out what is left in that year and then gives you months. So it's actually going through the actual expense, not the loan amount or any financial liability we have. Rather, it just only considers in how much we've paid for loan in this year and how much we've expended in terms of expenditure, and then works out that unrestricted cash ratio.
On loans, could I ask for a future budget meeting or a future general meeting to have a look at what our current interest rate on our secured loans is versus so I know those, there'd be at least 4 different loans, might be 5, with 5 different interest rates. But what is our bank interest accruing at? Are we at the point yet with interest rates rising where we're earning enough to match? Just an inquiry there as to whether our monthly interest received equals our monthly interest paid on those loans.
It is those loans are fixed.
Correct. Yep.
We'll bring that back.
Future. Thank you. Further questions for the finance team? Councillor Rogers, do you have any questions for the finance?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. First of all, the sustainability thing that, formula that we use, I'd like to still see that there each month alongside the state one, just to see the difference. And also, I just wanted to ask Dan, so the reason why our recoverable works income is not where we budgeted, is that just because we've got payments waiting to come in?
Yes, through the chair. So there has been, that was budgeted, that was based on the money that we would be spending and recovering at the same time. We have received a payment of over $800,000 in February, which is not represented in this report. So that budget versus actuals for the recoverable works is a lot closer than what that is showing in this report at the end of January.
Yeah, that would bring it up a fair bit. And then the grants and subsidies, is that, what was the reason for that one? Sorry, I didn't.
It was the
Why is that low? Yeah.
Sorry, through the chair. It's just the phasing of the budget. So it is a year-to-date figure, that's 6.6 million. And we've got a emphasis on that coming in every month when there is a large chunk of that grant and subsidy, which is the federal assistance grant, which comes in at the end of the year. So at the moment, we've just got it evened out every month, whereas we'll adjust it to reflect what we are expecting to come in every month, which that doesn't at the moment. So.
Yeah, and so the other thing that I wanted to ask was, with the materials and services is overspent, but what are they, like, I'm guessing that they're not to do with rural roads, town streets, like maintenance or capital expenditure, because that's all very under budget. We haven't done much of that work. So where are we spending the money for materials and services?
Yeah, it is something that we are looking into more, but our current assumption and what we've found so far is there is certainly an increased spending in the recoverable workspace. So a large chunk of that is being spent in that space, but we are investigating more. We have identified a few projects this month where it was capital works that was applied to operational, which would appear in that material and services space. So we're just identifying to make sure that that figure is correct. The money's certainly been spent, it's just a case of whether it's operational or capital in that case, or recoverable.
Councillor Rogers, that's a coding issue where we've identified the dollars.
Yeah, thank you. Because on the graphs make it look very good, because we've got all our maintenance is way down and our capital and then our spending's up. That's all.
Through the chair, the year-to-date mains doesn't include the parks and gardens either, so
Yeah,
there's a large,
that could be.
there is a large bit of cash of our operational budget that's not included on that chart.
Yeah, that could be, it'd be good to know where that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Dan, Chris, would it be fair to say that materials, when we undertake such a large revenue, or such large part of our expenditure and revenue is external sales in this space, materials and services always lead recoverable works income. We're always procuring material, fuel, contract services in advance of that. That would be traditionally the case. Sorry, can I just get I've had this coding issue mentioned a couple of times. Forgive my complete lack of intelligence around financial reporting mechanisms, but can someone just explain to me what that means?
Through the chair, so the process of when something is costed to the ledger, it's put to a job number, and if it's put to the wrong job number, it will go to a different place in the financial performance report.
Right, thank you.
Some of those legacy, some of it's legacy,
Well, most,
historical, so we've got to change it. It's a review process.
So it's coding the job number.
The job number, yeah.
so, but most of the material and services through you, Mr. Mayor, would be definitely recoverable works. And there's some accounts where there has been some here and there in the capital side of operating, but most of it, because none of the graph captures your RMPC and state recoverable works. So that is the, because we are always ahead in our expenditure on, as you mentioned, Mr. Mayor, there's state network and RMPC, so that's why it shows that difference.
Thank you. Questions? Councillor Plum.
Mr. Mayor, I'm just looking at these graphs and that in the capital works, with regard to our sewage infrastructure.
Sorry, which part?
Page 44.
Thank you.
Sewage infrastructure. So there's 300,000 there.
Is that a similar issue to the grants and subsidies being apportioned monthly? Is that what it
So,
says?
through the chair, just a question around
Why is the
why is it over
overspend?
budget? Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the capital projects in that space around the sewage treatment plant are showing numbers over budget at the moment of that 300,000, or that 250,000.
We need a closer look at how we got to whether it's your budget.
Yeah, so that was my next question, was should we look at that budgeting?
Yeah.
Going forward?
Are we thinking that the items are over budget, or is it the timing of the expenditure versus the budgeting of the expenditure? The timing of the actual versus timing of the budget, is that what it is, or are we running a $300,000 deficit on the project?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, there's an error there, which is because in sewage, I haven't factored in the carry forward of the SkyDown project, which was 985. So that's the error there, but we can fix that in the next.
Very good. So it's a carried forward amount from the project overlapping the 21-22 financial year with the 22-23. Good. That's good. That's a good answer. That's exactly what we need to do.
Mr. Mayor, I've got a question. I just got a comment. And I just want to commend these two fellows on the report. I think there's plenty of information and easy to understand, so well done to you two fellows. It was good.
Thank you, Councillor Peoples. There you go. So, mate, after the last meeting, we were scratching our head wondering how on earth we could provide more information to keep Councillor Peoples happy, but obviously you two have somehow found a way to do it in less than a month.
Well done. Thank you. I guess we're trying to write reports with council peoples in mind.
God help you. Councillor Hanson, any questions?
I'm good, thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Arthur.
Mr. Mayor, I know procurement of plant and equipment is an issue, not just for us. how confident are we that we will be able to get most of those parts that are in the budget? Because we've only spent $6,000 against a $2.2 million budget. Do we have most of those items
Some
in
of them.
train with a bit of an idea on delivery?
Sure, there may be some of these ones we've already ordered have been committed cost but won't show up here yet. But yeah, it's the timing.
Yeah, and I know we spoke about it yesterday,
Capital costs are all right.
making moves to be able to improve that plant procurement process ahead of the normal budget cycle. Yeah.
If I can just add through there, the capital costs carry forward. It's not like your operational expense where it's so we've committed for it.
I would hope with our decision at the recent meeting for the procurement of white plant especially, but also the equipment that you perhaps declared a conflict of interest in and left, I would be confident with the information we were provided, we'd go very close to a June 30 receipt. Some maybe not, but the white plant definitely. And the other thing that was, from a financial perspective, is going to be interesting, and I made this point during that discussion, we deferred the trade of quite a few pieces of plant and elected for auction instead, which will provide a deficit an enhanced. In the short term, there'll be a increase in the difference between what we spend and what we get in a receipt in our plant budget, and I think it's quite substantial. Do you recall that figure you were calculating on the fly, or Dan, are you aware of what? It's hundreds of thousands in difference.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I can't remember the figure now, but it will have a bit of difference because of the, as you mentioned yesterday, too, the CPI increase, the timing.
That's right. Plant cost, the procurement cost was higher alone, notwithstanding the fact we deferred sales.
Yeah, so it has increased.
And-
It will increase a bit over what we were expecting when we did the budget last year.
Including the deferral altogether of the sale. So I think the council at this point, despite our prolonged discussion on buses, and rip my tongue out for going this far in this meeting, but we have elected to hold the sale of a bus. So there's a $10,000 or $15,000 trade. We're going to go to auction for excavators. We're going to go to auction for something else. Well, no, actually the excavator we're trading, but there's a number of plant that will go to auction. Now, one would hope that we'll actually receive a better price, arguably, by going that route, but there'll be, you've identified earlier in your report, Dan, as cash is tight. That's only going to add further to it as we receive these pieces of plant. We're going to have a higher trade or turnover gap than we were budgeting for when we first handed the budget down. So we just need to be mindful of the impact.
Yep.
The decision we made, and we were aware of it. Some had pointed it out to us, but we are going to. There'll be a few months catching up.
If I could just add through the chair, the work that the finance team, Dan, plant fleet, assets, by going through everything, we're trying to improve our data sets and make some better decisions.
Councillor People, I can see a question.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, just probably with the comment that cash is tight, we're probably just going to have to keep that in mind over the next few months, formulating our next budget too, aren't we? And especially yesterday being asked for probably 2.5 million for 2 years in a row with our fleet. That's probably, things like that we might be able to get there, but anyway, we'll just keep an eye on it as we go.
True, although we did guillotine, one of the reasons we have got $2.5 million plant turnover is because we've guillotined so much out of the last two, we've put them back to well under 2 million, which is the lowest we've ever had our plant replacement in dollar terms. We've sacrificed for a couple of years to try and, it's a point of how much further can we continue to sacrifice that before we start to affect plant operations. We don't want to see too many more months where plant operations is, if you look at the graph difference, the one that, oh no, that's maintenance, sorry. But we want to make sure our plant is operating at, well over 100% return on investment where it's got the capacity to do so.
If I can just go through that, once again, Director was talking about coding and where we report what's capital, what's maintenance, some of that will adjust those figures as well.
Further questions? Project progress reports, 342. Can I have somebody move we received those reports, please? Councillor Peoples, second of Councillor Plum. Those in favour? 7-0. Goal 1.
I was just going to make some comment through the chair that a number of these projects that are in progress are noted in the coming reports from the Director of Works and also the district managers, but we can take questions now. During the month of January, it has been noted that the seeding at the Lagoon Creek and also the Aramac Workshop extension projects were completed despite the rain that we had, the rain events that we had in that month.
Jenny, I just note our communication, we're probably not likely to see completion of the Barcaldine Showground toilet upgrade prior to 30 June just on construction lead times, is that correct?
Yes, Mr Mayor.
Okay, so councillors just note that line item under Showground in Communities 1, Goal 1, that will require some degree of carryovers within the program. LRCIP 3 doesn't conclude until the 30th of June 2024, is that correct, officers? Or is it the 31st of December? Either way, it overlaps this financial year. Sorry?
Next one.
It's end of financial year, Mr Mayor.
So, okay, so we've actually got until the end of the following financial year. So that one's one that will hang over.
Through Mr Mayor, Muddaborough will be the same. We've got the same 18 to 20 weeks lead time.
Thank you. So both those two toilet block upgrades and installations will be, there'll be a requirement for those to be recognised in the 23-24 budget. Not with new funds though, we don't think, officers, we're going to be on budget, we're within budget, sorry. Pool, Barcaldine, Jenny.
To Mr Mayor, that won't be completed. That's Works for Queensland funding, which we've got till the 30th of June 24. It's a larger project. Getting it all together is a larger project than to do the filtration, the different components in it,
Where would you be up to at this point in time with that?
Well, hoping to sit down with the Director of Works in the next week or two to actually go through what has been discussed with the gentleman that's doing it on a volunteer basis with us so that we can put together the scope of work. So I have done a portion for getting some CCTV camera work, which has closed, which again, got to have some further conversations about that because I'm not sure if it's exactly what we're looking for. So yeah, happy to do that within the next week so we can get that out as soon as possible.
Is your thoughts that the works required pool might require, it would be best fit to be done in an off season, or is it stuff predominantly that can be done, substitute in and out during it?
Mr Mayor, the majority of it, especially the filtration stuff, would be best done in off season.
Okay.
Yeah,
So would it be your expectation that'll be this sometime from about now next year onwards?
We were hoping to actually get it done in the off season this year, but that's just not looking promising. Some small components of it may be, but the larger bits won't be because there's construction work and building construction work and that.
Sorry, Mr Mayor, just a correction on that, phase 3, we are required to complete it by the end of this financial year, the projects.
Which is not where we're at with the pool because it's Works for Queensland, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, which is definitely 30 June next year. Right. So the two toilet blocks are of concern. Officers, I suggest. We may need to look at that.
Take that on us and follow them.
All right, I'll give you two. Sorry, Councillor Bless.
Mr Mayor, you set the LRCIP 3, LRCIP,
30 June.
so that covers all the showgrounds upgrades.
Correct.
The lights, electricity and sound at Alva, it all has to be done before the end of June this year.
Correct.
One other thing on that page, Mr. Mayor, it's the flood cameras. Where are we up to there? What's the next line, priority flood cameras?
Yeah, we had a discussion about this last meeting, because this is the project.
I've got a meeting with TMR tomorrow afternoon, Mr. Mayor. And I've also been keeping the funding body QRA up to date with where we're at. Just need some detail from TMR. It's just been a few changes in over at TMR, and I just haven't received, I guess, final direction from them. Given that they're joint with us on how we're doing this, I don't want to do our part and not include them in terms of what their expectations are as well. We will have this finished by the end of this financial year, it's not an intensive project that will take a lot of time. The componentry is probably the largest part of the budget there. The installation will be pretty simple.
Thank you. And I would suggest the 8 system Alpha Showgrounds would be exactly the same. The actual purchase of the equipment will be the lion's share. We'd hope you don't have to run new lines everywhere, and the installation might be a relatively expedient process. Can I just ask then, if we're going to skip through here just quickly, come back to individual line items, but if I go through to goal 2, I see LRCIP for the Acacia Street 4. Is that going to be completed by 30 June?
We'll have a report that's in Chris's, I think.
Progress on it. Mr. Mayor, I believe that a funding requirement has been met for that.
So that was the earlier round of LRCIP?
Yes, that's correct. In terms of construction, just going through and adding up the weeks of the advice that's been given to me, probably looking at at worst a 4 to 4.5 month completion date at the time of writing the report. Although, and that's based on the availability of pump motors. But we've also asked the provider to give us some alternatives so that we can see what options we might have around bringing that to completion sooner.
And if I continue on down, just checking on LRCIP, if I look at Drummond Slopes Road gravel, Aramac Jericho Road seal, and rural address signage and Narvathong Road, are they all LRCIP round 3?
Round 3.
So they also all have to be concluded 30 June. Are we anticipating any, well, hang on. Yeah, Drummond Slopes says nothing's 100%, so are we anticipating that that'll be done?
The concern we have with regards to any road construction programs at the moment, if I'll talk to those specifically, is a delay of where we find ourselves now. We're a month behind in terms of where we want to be. We've only gotten back to work on 2 of our major TMR projects in this week. The impact of that we're going through and assessing at the moment. It will mean that the only options we've got, and what we're looking at, is either shifting some of those other projects not related to the funding that you've mentioned, where available, where we can, potentially into the next financial year. Again, another meeting we had with TMR, or part of the discussion we're having with TMR tomorrow, or rejigging involving more contractors. Obviously, cautious of that, given that a lot of the costing associated with those projects have been costed, with the majority of works to be completed by council in mind.
Okay. If I continue over the page, LRCIP 3 for the public rest area for the sculpture trail. We're going to have big difficulties there because we're only still at quote stage, aren't we? Okay, and that's it. The guidelines would suggest that in general circumstances, extensions past 30 June will not be granted, though in exceptional circumstances they may be considered at the discretion of the delegate. However, what's not considered an exceptional circumstance, planning issues, contractor availability and general delays associated with project commencement or completion are not considered exceptional circumstances, and eligible funding recipients should take these into consideration when nominating the project.
We did have, Mr. Mayor, difficulties in getting extension on phase 2 with the 4 as well. But now we have submitted an annual report and a final report on phase 1 and phase 2 to the Queensland Audit Office, which suggests that we have expanded the funding that we allocated to Acacia Street 4. So in circumstances where we need variations, it's hard with LRCI.
Well, on the projects that we've just reviewed that are funded by that round, the one that would immediately cause a red light to be flashing for me is the public rest area of the sculpture trail. I think we should commence immediate reprioritisation and seek at that 100,000 to be reapportioned to another project, given that to me it would be illogical to conceive that it'll be done this year with a report for the next meeting. The good news is LRCI 4 has been released, so that project need not be halted. We just may have to seek funding through alternative means. I'll keep going, but I'll go to you first, Councillor Gleeson.
Mr. Mayor, the one that jumps out at me is the 900,000 for the 2.6 kilometres of bitumen seal on the Aramac-Jericho Road. I'd imagine that section...
Mr. Mayor, if we're going to get into projects, I might declare a...
Just on, can you just drop out quickly? I'll wave you back in because that one's the only one that's really I'm too worried about.
But even some of the talk about the facilities for the showgrounds will make it a little bit nervous with previously declared, so I'll declare and come back afterwards.
Record can reflect that Councillor Arthur's having a break. Chris? Jericho Aramac?
Yeah, so I think that the concerns that I have around there is obviously a delay to other works and impact that it's going to have on it. There's still need clarity from council with regards to this particular project. As I understand it, there are two projects that have been discussed, and I still need clarity. Now they're both in design. They're good to go, but there is some confusion around this work either occurring around Road Rock or occurring to continue the seal from the Aramac end of the road.
Can I just ask though, are both projects roughly 900,000?
That is correct.
So it's just simply a matter of last Tuesday?
That is correct.
We may need a special meeting to do that. I can't do it today. We need the papers, the project schemes, the change, the mileage, the whole lot.
Mr. Mayor,
Are we doing that ourselves? Not GBA, sorry, not the construction, are we doing that ourselves?
yes, we are.
And when did you have that scheduled for?
Next month. Yeah.
So
Look, we're going to be delayed on it.
I'll take advice whether you need a special meeting to pick that or whether we can defer it till the March meeting, but we're going to need to go quick.
There is, there are some other options that actually may further shape that in terms of options. When I've had a look at the original resolution, it talks to the agreed amount of funding on that road that doesn't, as far as I can see, didn't talk to a particular area. So there's no mention of change. So it's quite vague, and there doesn't seem to be any consensus as to what decision was made at the time. I'll leave it at that for this stage. The decision and the discussion around that occurred precedes my time at council.
So, okay, all right, we'll have a discussion futuristically about which sections of the road. The priority here is actually making sure that we don't lose any of this money.
The other aspect of that, sorry, Mr Mayor, is the potential damage that is being caused, what I suspect may have been caused to areas of that road, may encourage you to go with one location rather than the other as well.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
So, the other one that jumps at me there is not the same amount of money, but it's not far from it, is the Craven Road paving set.
So, Mr Mayor, we're in the process grassing off right now. The one hiccup identified at about 1600 yesterday afternoon, as when I stepped out of the meeting and spoke with Senior Work Supervisor. There is a cultural heritage issue that has been identified late yesterday afternoon. We've engaged with consultants to reach out to TOs, and I'm waiting this morning to see where we get to with.
Was it 650 the total figure, or did we have an amount, a portion the previous year that didn't get carried forward? Was it?
150 was last year's amount, carried forward into it this, so it is 650 in total.
Yeah, it's 650, okay, cool. And that 150 was it, oh sorry, I'm looking at the wrong line there, that's actually not LRCIP anyway, that's
This
road
is
recovery.
our.
I'm sorry, I didn't line that up properly. So if we,
that current program that I worked up yesterday, prior to understanding this particular situation, took us to the last week of May, and I don't even want to guess what the impact of this latest information might be yet.
right, if I come back here, so we've got 100,000 in fund, sorry. Dan, you were about to say.
I was just going to say, through the chair, what we're planning to do over the next month is certainly look at all the funding sources and when they're due and what the projects are, so we can provide extra detail to council on the progress of those towards completion prior to the funding date. So,
Provide them, yeah.
Which is great, although I'm concerned that we won't be giving you enough time if we were to say, yep, cut that one and go somewhere else, because we're going to have less than 3 months from the next meeting until completion of the funding round.
I think, Mr Mayor, I think some of these need to be a decision made this afternoon, and maybe you should add another minute.
Councillor Gleeson?
Mr Mayor,
No, I'm thinking, keep going.
I was going to say that we need to have a special meeting. If we need to have a special meeting tomorrow, we really should do it, because we're going to run out of time. And I'll say it disappoints me to think that we're still talking about where the 2.6 kilometres are sealed on that Aramac Road, when I was under the belief that it was extending on from the existing bitumen. So I believe that we need to, if we need to have an extra hour this afternoon or tomorrow, it should be done.
Right, there may be some more information that we might need tonight, and it's not the next day or two, but yes, point noted. I think we've got some scope here. What's not difficult to do, to my understanding within the guidelines of LRCI, is reallocate money to existing, if one project's going to overrun and one's not going to be completed, you can divert the funds simply.
Well, exactly, Mr. Mayor. It's in a matrix that when you have to report it annually or at the end of the whole funding, you have to report it as a whole lot. So as far as we are undertaking that project, it's fine. If the fundings are high or low in any other project, it's fine, it can be shifted around. But if we haven't taken any, like if we are not doing one of those projects out of those 9, then we might have to report them. And so we have to work on that, how in that scenario we'll have to go back and ask them the question that how does that work?
and including new ones, yes, or variations.
And
We would have to run that by.
for that Aramac Jericho Road bitumen seal, when we put in for the project, we just got sealing of 2.6 kilometer road on Aramac Jericho Road. So we haven't identified.
So that's fine. Did you include on that one the toilets, or is that a standalone one?
So it says rest area toilet upgrade, sculpture tri-toilet blocks to be constructed. So it says sculpture tri-toilet. toilets and it has the coordinates, so.
So that's one separate line item, that's not on the same as the pavement seal.
No, so it sits as 100K.
So that's going to be the problem, because all of the others we can just add to. Like we've identified 2 showground users meetings, 12 months ago and again a week ago, the need to upgrade lights. We're already undertaking a package of works through LRCIP on both them showgrounds, all their showgrounds. We could move money there to bring the light upgrade forward, but it's going to take more than 6 months. That's 6 weeks to do that. We need to give very clear direction if that's what our intent is, and that's just one example of where we could redivert the funding. But that one for the sculpture trail, that's going to be a serious problem because we're not going to execute anything in that space realistically between now and then. Or do you think there's
You could knock it out, Mr Mayor.
you think you could?
Do you think you can do it, Paul?
I think we can get the facility, we know where we're going to put it.
No.
Where we can get the materials, we can actually buy the toilet.
And then the other one is the balance of the funding for the 2 toilet blocks at Mullaburra and Barcaldine.
Yeah, well, mine will be tight, it won't be delivered till late April, May, so,
And who's your constructor?
just council carpenter at the moment.
Same one that's going to do yours, Jenny.
No, we
No,
have
we've
our
got an
own
additional.
house.
Oh, sorry.
Aramex got their own chipping now.
Right. So Jenny, yours is going to be delivered.
Well, it's probably going to be the same time. I was going to email them, ask for a confirmation date, but that would be, because we're ordered at a very similar time, and it is going to be our carpenter. But I'm hoping that we can start the foundation groundwork prior, so if we can get a proper plan of the slab and the underlay requirements, that we could start that process. So that basically it's a matter of putting the kit up when it arrives. I was going to talk to our carpenter, but he's just doing some work in another town.
All right. We're here for. We can go around in circles on this. I think specifically we need to dedicate some focus on completion dates and LRCIP for LRCIP 3. And if there's a decision of council required in terms of reallocation, we make that promptly within a fortnight. And in terms of selecting the section of road, with respect to Chris's advice that we just need to get the 2 sets of plans, the changes, and also overlay any current damage and the impact that might have on the upthought process.
Yes, Mr Mayor, I strongly in the opinion that without having seen the pickup of damage in that area around Grey Rock, is that probably lends itself towards a betterment style project.
Yeah.
That's something that I would discuss separately with QRA, and that's a brief that I can present to council that alleviates that pressure of timeline.
We'd select extending the existing bitumen and leaving the Grey Rock section for reconstruction. We've actually got it in the drawer ready to go.
Yeah, that's correct. Just having a look at my program, that would put us in a position to start on the extension of that seal from the 5th of April.
I'm cognizant that a councillor present has a prescribed conflict of interest in some elements of construction of that road, that being Councillor Rogers. So I might just defer any conversation around the need to formalise a motion. At lunch, I'll take advisement from officers whether we need to give that direction today, whether we've got sufficient information to make that decision today, and if we do, it could be the 4th mayoral minute, which I would then allow you, Councillor Rogers, to make the appropriate declaration at that time.
Yeah, Mr Mayor.
Well, you wouldn't need to remake it, to be fair. You've already declared that previously when we've had discussions around the running surface and upgrades to that road. I have monitored the conversation closely around the toilet block upgrade and the road whilst you've been in the room, but I don't think we've strayed into an area of decision making yet. At the point that we do, should we be required to later, I'll give you that opportunity to make that declaration.
Yeah, that sounds good.
All right, we've become preoccupied here with LRCI 3. Are there any other projects? Actually, can I ask Councillor Arthur to return, please? Councillor Arthur, we've concluded for the time being. I'm hungry too. Return to your seat. There's your first chip for the day.
It's about my fourth piece of slice, though.
I'm aware of this. We are still on the project progress report. We've, for the time being, concluded our conversations around LRCI 3. So just returning generally to this, does anyone have any questions around projects other than the timing of completion and the funding models? Has anyone requesting an update on any of these projects? I have one, but I'm sorry, I've done a lot of talking here. Councillor Plum, have you got any questions? Councillor Peoples, do you?
Yes, you were going to give us a report, you said there before, Dan, you're going to bring to the next meeting.
Oh, just through the chair, identify the LRCI projects, for example, and what projects they are, when they're due, a bit more detail on their progress.
Okay, but these ones we've questioned today, can you just give us an update about where we're at with those two in that report, please?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
Councillor Rogers, do you have any questions of a general nature for any of the goals projects?
No, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Hanson, do you?
No, thanks, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Gleeson?
Mr Mayor, it's only a little simple one on the way past with the horse paddocks and fence and shade needs re-evaluating. What are we up to there for?
I haven't moved on that, Mr Mayor. Yeah, it's just the budget.
I think your advice was that you'd revisit that for the new budget deliberations because it was so grossly over our expectations that we may have to look at a concept change there, Councillor Gleeson. Councillor Arthur.
Through you, Mr Mayor, it's about the formatting of that project report. Like we have budget cost, actual cost, committed, but the variation is only worked out on actual cost. But my understanding of if we have actual costs and committed, then the end cost is going to be those two combined, but the variation is only worked on actual cost to date.
Councillor, I'm looking at one here where it's not. So village green lighting in goal 4 is actual cost plus committed cost.
Righto, well, it may not be even throughout the report, because go back to the Acacia Street Ball, it's budget of 900, actual 718, with committed of 337, but the variation is 181, so that's calculated on actual cost, budget less actual cost. And then the same is 2 below for the scale and telemetry.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, committed is actually not deemed as an actual cost, so it can change or vary. That's why financially looking at it should be actually what's spent to what the budget is, because it's a cash kind of representation of where your budget is rather than COVID.
Okay.
So,
and I want to apologise, it is consistent, the village green lighting line, I just don't know where I did my mathematics, it's 25,000, the committed cost not included in that.
whereas showing committed cost, Mr. Mayor, was the reason to show that these projects are in progress or?
It was two meetings ago we looked at that, didn't we? Because even though the action percentage is what's been actually undertaken to date as a percentage of dollars versus budget, the committed cost was another indicative tool that there's still more work progressing in that space that we've committed to do.
And if a project has zero cost attached to it, it might still show that there has been progress made and it's been committed to be done. And so it's just to show that the project is underway and how much more cost can it come in.
Okay, Councillor Arthur, that doesn't perhaps satisfy you, does it explain it?
It explains it, but yeah, maybe my definition of committed costs is different to accounting.
So I don't know if it's accounting, it's probably just the way our system, so can you explain how committed cost in our system works in that you mentioned before that it can vary from what we commit to what actually gets expended? Can you explain that? Or somebody? I can, but I don't want to be the person doing it.
Yeah. Through the chair, the committed cost would be a quote that we've gone out for example, from the supplier, and then we've raised an order, and that's when I'm hearing that.
And how would that sometimes potentially be varied? What would be the circumstances where the committed cost might not be the actual?
Could be a variety of reasons. We change the scope of what the work is that we're asking to be delivered. Could be one example. It could be if we have, depending on what the order is, there may be variances in the way that the cost is actually come through in the end. So we could present it with this with actuals plus committed to give a total amount, and then a variance of that, if that is what council would prefer to see.
It's more so, to me, it flags that that project is most likely going to run over budget.
Or is running under budget?
Or, yeah.
It has the potential, it's the escalation.
Yeah. Like if we already have, like if it is a quote, and unless that completes 100% of the work, like if there is actual cost committed and still more work to do, that would generally mean more funds. So that project is, tracking at, what's that, 1.05, so that's 150,000 over budget if the committed doesn't change now.
So Chair, that would be probably a representation of identifying the projects that are running over budget, but the committed doesn't necessarily represent the full amount of money left to spend on that project.
No, that's what I mean, it could potentially be more.
Like the toilet blocks is probably a good example, because we're one of commitments in there for the toilet materials, and but we don't have the labour component to it.
But just projects in general.
If we can have a separate line item there, Mr. Mayor, and show actual spend plus committed. But if we put committed with actual spend, then the bottom line will show an exaggerated amount which hasn't been spent in cash.
No, I'm happy with the actual and the committed, and I understand that there may be, I would say normally a plus on that as opposed to a minus, because we get a quote, very rarely do we come in under that quote, the suppliers do.
There could be a number of orders or quotes in that.
Yeah.
Not figures, so some could.
Yeah. No, but it's probably just a good flag for that project to be looked at, and whether it's a comment to say that,
Look closer.
Goal 4, community Alpha Gates entrance gate. Damien, how are we progressing there? I know Works for Queensland goes out another 12 months, but what are we looking like?
Mr. Mayor, we're going to be having a meeting shortly. I've been talking with Dan on this project as well. We're going to be looking at getting a proper design from the tourism group, and we're actually looking at ways. One of the ideas is to actually put in place that we're looking at trying to get to working with TMR to have it as a proper gate entrance, like on the highway, to find a location there with that side of it.
Very good. Why would we not have been given the invoice for the community housing yet? Not that I'm worried about the money sitting in our bank account, but is there a hold up there, or is it just takes time?
No, through you, Mr. Mayor, it was paid. Just
Okay.
It has been paid just recently.
Right, there's another hit on our cash, then 300,000, but we have, in return for that, got a number of houses, so. Right, any more questions? 343, can I have somebody move we receive the Community Care Services report, please? Councillor Peoples, second Councillor Arthur, those in favour? 7-0.
Through Chair, Council provides a number of community care programs across the region, and this is just an update report on how we're progressing with a number of those. Overall, the current result is expected to be $68,000 under budget, under the year-to-date budget, currently, with the forecast expected this to turn around and come out somewhere near our budget expectations towards the end of the year. The housing program is currently in a good position for cost recovery. The CHSP is looking at some good results as well, but it's largely due to a result of some unspent grant funding Home care and 60 and better programs, both looking at net losses, both before and after our overheads are included. Home care is currently tracking an $84,000 loss after overheads. This is expected to improve though as the year progresses.
Can you hold on that? Why? Why is home care losing money?
Some of the reason is the costs that we're including in this don't take into consideration the recovery of our admin overheads is a key one. So a lot of the results are looking to get around a net result of covering costs at the moment, and we're looking at the way we're operating businesses and trying to result in a number of them should be cost recovery, whereas like the NDIS is one that we should be able to make some sort of profit on that.
Can I request councillors that we close the room close the meeting under section 254J in that we are discussing a contract and public discussion of that could be judicious to council. Councillor Peoples moves, Councillor Gleeson seconds. Is there any debate about closing the meeting? Those in favour of closing the meeting? 7-0. Meeting goes to closed session. Turning to open the session at 12:22. Any further open session questions for the Community Care Services report?
Just following through the chair, following the discussions we had in closed session, that the management team will commit to providing some more detail on actions being taken and a breakdown of where the money's going and what we're doing with it.
Excellent. We'll provide the business overview workshop.
Yeah.
As mentioned, Mr. Mayor, it's a positive that the projection for the year is financially better off, but some of the areas in the program probably just need a little bit more investigation.
Well, that's my point, because even though they're all lumped in together, there's totally different program streams in there, and the viability or the financial reporting within some of those systems is what we need to focus on. Like holistically, it looks okay.
Yeah.
But
which can
under
be,
and overperform.
Areas can then be glazed over because of a whole it looks better than last month.
Yeah. If you put it in a road maintenance, it's like saying, oh, our road crews are performing well because we're making so much money in TMR, but if our maintenance costs are high, road grading thing, so it's, you've got to drill down to the specifics to make sure that we're right. Okay? Thank you, Dan and Samad, for that reporting. Can I have somebody now move that we receive Chris's report? Councillor Hanson moves, People seconds, those in favour? 7-0. Chris.
Good afternoon, all. Just in addition to the report, I know we spoke about it. There's a couple of items that we did speak about yesterday, primarily the landfill and programs that we're working on there. There's a couple of other updates as well. Just note the timeline. I did speak to it earlier when we were talking about programs with regards to the Acacia Street bore and investigations around sourcing another pump motor. Otherwise, we are looking at anywhere between 16 to 18 weeks, so 4.5 months prior to delivery of that pump motor. The only other things to mention there, emergency works have commenced and are continuing where we can actually get access to. Weather has delayed the commencement of emergency works and also impacted commencement of our own works as well. And that's probably probably it, in addition to anything that's previously been reported on.
Questions for Chris? Councillor Rogers.
No, I don't have any questions. Thanks, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Peters.
No, good, thanks, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Gleeson.
Not at the moment, Mr Mayor, thank you.
Councillor Hanson.
Thanks, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Arthur.
No, Mr Mayor.
All good, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Clean slate.
Is that 35 seconds?
And only because I stared at you for 5 seconds afterwards, wondering what you've done.
Yeah, I think it's a bit unfair.
Well, Jan and Sam had you put on the rack here for the last hour.
Oh,
You were not sweating bullets.
Slapped myself in the face when I went to the men's room before and gave myself a bit of a pump up.
So on that note, I'm going to adjourn for lunch 4 minutes early. I nearly didn't start your report, but oh, this will go forever and our lunch will be cold. It's already that way. But we will adjourn for half an hour and then return to District Manager reports. Councillors, I will need that half hour to formulate these mayoral minutes. So you are free if you need to leave the precinct for that period of time. Meeting adjourned. Or